Have you ever questioned how medications your household depended on could wind up prohibited today? These pharmaceuticals defined healthcare practices in residences nationwide, occupying cabinets without anybody challenging their security. And if the treatments we counted on concealed unexpected hazards, what else did we consume unknowingly? Methaqualone sleeping tablets were formerly regarded as the mild solution to sleepless evenings, dispensed by family physicians who presumed they were providing something entirely safe and beneficial. During the 70s, individuals placed confidence in these small white pills the way they trusted aspirin, never envisioning something distributed so routinely at the pharmacy register could harbor such severe dangers. Households stored bottles in medicine cabinets alongside vitamins and cold treatments, and nobody reconsidered refilling prescriptions repeatedly. The tablets functioned rapidly, delivering a pleasant drowsiness that resembled descending into a gentle cloud following exhausting days. Physicians distributed them for conditions ranging from slight nervousness to periodic sleeplessness, assured they were assisting patients in living improved lives. Yet as the decade advanced, accounts of addiction and unintentional overdoses emerged with disturbing regularity. What formerly appeared as a marvel for weary minds converted into a catastrophe regulators could no longer disregard. Currently, methaqualone is designated as a Schedule I controlled substance, signifying it possesses no acknowledged medical application. The pill that formerly guaranteed tranquil slumber now remains secured in the chronicle of medications we embraced too hastily. Amphetamine-reducing pills were dispensed liberally throughout the 70s, particularly to women desiring to eliminate several pounds before warm weather or accommodate a particular outfit. Doctors composed prescriptions without reluctance, convinced these tablets represented a secure and contemporary shortcut to a leaner physique. Homemakers appreciated how the pills provided them vitality to tidy the residence, prepare supper, and still feel sufficiently alert to welcome their spouses at the entrance. Nobody labeled them speed during that era, at minimum not in courteous society. They were merely dietary supplements, modern pharmaceuticals accomplishing what modern pharmaceuticals were intended to accomplish. Pharmacies supplied bottles by the hundreds, and patients returned repeatedly without anyone expressing concern. The weight vanished rapidly, and temporarily, everything appeared ideal. However, the energy was artificial, and the collapses that succeeded each dosage grew increasingly difficult to dismiss. Hearts accelerated, sleep disappeared, and certain patients discovered themselves incapable of operating without the pills. When regulators ultimately comprehended the magnitude of the difficulty, limitations intensified swiftly. The dietary pills that guaranteed effortless weight reduction abandoned a heritage of dependency and compromised confidence. Phenylpropanolamine cold treatments occupied pharmacy displays throughout the 70s, guaranteeing rapid relief from congested noses and sinus compression. Households acquired these packages without hesitation, believing that anything marketed so publicly must be harmless. Parents administered them to children, grandparents consumed them for congestion, and students ingested them before examinations while combating colds. The component functioned by restricting blood vessels, which cleared nasal passages swiftly. Nobody envisioned the identical mechanism could generate serious complications elsewhere in the organism. For years, individuals consumed these pills during every cold season, establishing a pattern that seemed as ordinary as consuming orange juice. Yet medical accounts began recording something disturbing. Young, otherwise robust people were experiencing strokes immediately after consuming these medications. Researchers connected the association back to phenylpropanolamine, and the discovery transmitted shock waves through households. Regulators withdrew products from displays and compelled companies to reformulate their cold treatments almost immediately. The reliable decongestant transformed into a warning narrative about concealed dangers residing inside recognizable medicine containers. Paregoric liquid for teething infants was something grandmothers advocated firmly. a dense brownish fluid that appeared to soothe irritable babies almost immediately. Throughout the 70s, parents applied it directly onto inflamed gums without understanding they were administering a preparation containing opium. The container resided in medicine cabinets alongside baby aspirin and diaper ointment, regarded as merely another instrument for enduring teething. Mothers transferred the recommendation from generation to generation, presuming they were distributing wisdom rather than hazard. Infants who had been weeping for hours would abruptly grow silent, their small faces easing into tranquil slumber. It appeared as a wonder, and nobody questioned why it functioned so effectively. Pharmacists marketed it without hesitation, and doctors seldom cautioned against its application. Yet, opium doesn't belong anywhere adjacent to an infant, and the dangers of respiratory suppression and overdose were considerably greater than anyone comprehended. When regulators scrutinized the evidence, paregoric was removed from accessibility and ultimately prohibited for pediatric application entirely. The liquid that formerly comforted innumerable babies now represents a reminder of how hazardous substances concealed behind custom. Non-prescription codeine cough formula was something every household appeared to possess stored in a cabinet, prepared for the initial indication of a persistent cough. Throughout the 70s, individuals entered pharmacies and obtained bottles without prescriptions, believing that anything accessible so freely must be innocuous. The dense, sweet liquid coated, irritated throats and silenced coughs that maintained families conscious through extended winter evenings. Parents measured it into children, grandparents consumed it before retiring, and nobody envisioned they were ingesting an opioid with genuine dangers. The flavor was almost agreeable, a mixture of medicinal and sugary that became peculiarly reassuring during illness days. Individuals consumed it more frequently than necessary, presuming if a modest amount assisted, additional would assist more rapidly. For years, this persisted without concern because codeine appeared commonplace compared to drugs individuals worried about. Yet bodies don't differentiate between commonplace and hazardous regarding opioids. Dependency advanced silently, and abuse became increasingly difficult to dismiss. Regulators ultimately transferred codeine behind prescription requirements, concluding an epoch when cough relief accompanied dangers nobody referenced. Chloral hydrate sleep elixirs possessed a reputation extending back to the preceding century, and throughout the 70s, numerous households still maintained bottles stored for evenings when slumber wouldn't arrive. Doctors prescribed it informally, regarding it as a mild resolution for patients requiring assistance drifting off. The liquid possessed a sharp flavor that individuals ingested rapidly, pursuing it with water to disguise the burn. It functioned swiftly, drawing users into a profound sleep that seemed almost excessively deep to be natural. Travelers consumed it for extended flights, nervous patients consumed it before procedures, and depleted parents consumed it following weeks with newborns. Nobody discussed chloral hydrate being the active component in the notorious knockout drops of crime literature. The margin between a therapeutic dosage and a hazardous one was uncomfortably narrow, and combining it with alcohol could convert a simple sleep supplement into something lethal. When overdose accounts and unintentional deaths accumulated, regulators limited access and ultimately removed it from common application. The elixir that formerly guaranteed rest now functions as a reminder of how readily confidence can be misplaced in something recognizable. If you're valuing this exploration through America's Prohibited Medication Chronicles, activate that subscribe button and press the notification bell so our next pharmaceutical archaeology project doesn't escape your attention. We've got decades of vanished treatments awaiting rediscovery. Phenobarbital solutions for restless children were formerly regarded as a sensible resolution for parents exhausted by sleepless evenings and inconsolable weeping. Throughout the 70s, doctors prescribed these barbiturate syrups without substantial hesitation, convinced they were assisting households manage with the ordinary challenges of raising young children. The liquid arrived in bottles with cheerful labels flavored to make ingesting easier, and parents measured dosages with informal confidence. A spoonful before retiring guaranteed a silent evening, and desperate mothers perceived nothing incorrect with reaching for the bottle when exhaustion made everything seem impossible. Nobody labeled it sedating children during that era. It was merely assisting them slumber the way a warm bath or lullaby might. Yet phenobarbital is a potent drug that suppresses the central nervous system, and administering it to developing brains possessed dangers nobody completely comprehended. Overdoses occurred more readily than parents envisioned. When consciousness ultimately expanded, limitations intensified dramatically, and the concept of administering barbiturates to toddlers became inconceivable. Those bottles now symbolize a period when convenience eclipsed caution in disturbing methods. Bromide sedative mixtures occupied pharmacy displays throughout the 70s, marketed as mild nerve elixirs for anyone experiencing overwhelmed by daily existence. Individuals purchased them without prescriptions, believing that something accessible so publicly couldn't generate serious damage. The mixtures guaranteed calm without drowsiness, a method to eliminate the edge of nervousness while still operating through the day. Patients consumed them for weeks or months, never understanding bromide doesn't depart the organism rapidly. Rather, it gathers gradually, accumulating in tissues until toxic concentrations activate symptoms that appear to originate from nowhere. Confusion, memory difficulties, skin eruptions, and psychiatric disturbances materialized in patients with no concept their nerve elixir was accountable. Doctors occasionally misdiagnosed these symptoms as separate conditions, prescribing additional medications while the genuine perpetrator accumulated silently. By the period researchers connected the connections, thousands had experienced from bromide toxicity without comprehending the cause. Regulators ultimately removed these mixtures from easy accessibility, yet the damage had distributed through a generation of trusting consumers. The sedatives that guaranteed tranquility rather delivered a gradual poisoning. Meprobamate tranquilizers became a sensation throughout the 70s, prescribed so extensively that consuming them appeared fashionable among suburban housewives. Doctors distributed prescriptions for conditions ranging from mild nervousness to ordinary tensions of modern existence, and pharmacies supplied bottles by the millions. The pills guaranteed to eliminate rough edges, abandoning users calm without substantial sedation. Women discussed their meprobamate prescriptions at bridge gatherings and cocktail parties, regarding tablets as sophisticated accessories rather than serious drugs. The designation became shorthand for tranquility, materializing in magazines with surprising regularity. Yet meprobamate, the active component, wasn't as mild as its reputation indicated. Dependency cultivated silently, and patients who attempted to cease discovered withdrawal symptoms they never anticipated. The boundary between therapeutic application and problematic reliance obscured rapidly, and numerous discovered they could no longer operate without pills they formerly consumed informally. When regulators designated meprobamate as controlled, the decision arrived with innumerable narratives of dependency. The tranquilizer that characterized an epoch of easy calm now functions as a caution about medications embraced too enthusiastically. Propoxyphene painkillers were among the most prescribed medications in America, distributed for conditions ranging from headaches to minor injuries to the dull pains of aging. Throughout the 70s, doctors regarded these pills as a secure step between aspirin and stronger narcotics, ideal for patients who required additional but not the stigma of heavier drugs. Households maintained bottles in medicine cabinets, reaching for them whenever pain interrupted routines. The pills appeared modern and dependable, supported by a company that guaranteed effectiveness without serious adverse effects. Patients relied on them completely, ingesting dosages before work, following surgery, or during recovery without any perception of danger. Yet propoxyphene possessed a hazardous secret concealed inside its chemistry. The drug could generate lethal heart rhythm disturbances, particularly in patients who consumed slightly more than prescribed or combined it with other medications. Accounts of sudden deaths gathered silently for years before regulators acknowledged. When the evidence became undeniable, propoxyphene was withdrawn from the market, abandoning a legacy of questions about how something so trusted could have been so hazardous. Methapyrilene antihistamine sleep supplements were stored in medicine cabinets across America throughout the 70s, marketed as mild helpers for anyone experiencing difficulty falling unconscious. These non-prescription pills guaranteed relief without the drowsy aftereffect of prescription sedatives, and individuals trusted them because antihistamines appeared commonplace. Parents consumed them following extended days, travelers consumed them to accommodate to new time zones, and students consumed them when nervousness maintained them conscious. The pills functioned by blocking histamine receptors, generating a drowsiness that seemed natural rather than chemical. Nobody questioned the security of something marketed publicly beside vitamins. For years, households depended on these sleep supplements without concern. Yet laboratory studies ultimately disclosed something terrifying. Methapyrilene was associated with liver cancer in animal testing, and the implications for humans couldn't be dismissed. Regulators responded rapidly, withdrawing products from displays and compelling companies to reformulate nighttime treatments. The pills that formerly guaranteed tranquil rest transformed into symbols of how hazard can conceal inside ordinary-looking packages on pharmacy displays. Hexachlorophene infant wash products were regarded as the gold standard of newborn hygiene throughout the 70s, applied in hospitals and residences to maintain delicate skin clean and liberated from bacteria. Nurses bathed infants with these solutions, and parents persisted the routine at home, presuming they were safeguarding babies from infection. The antibacterial agent functioned powerfully, eliminating germs on contact and abandoning skin experiencing fresh. Bottles resided beside changing tables, and parents reached for them as naturally as for diapers or powder. Nobody questioned whether something applied on newborns could potentially be damaging. It appeared as the accountable choice, the modern choice. Yet hexachlorophene absorbed through infant skin considerably more readily than anyone understood. Studies disclosed that repeated exposure generated brain damage in babies, particularly premature infants whose systems were even more vulnerable. The discovery transmitted shock waves through hospitals and residences. Regulators prohibited the product from consumer application, and medical facilities modified protocols immediately. The wash that symbolized careful parenting transformed into a devastating reminder that even gentle-appearing products can possess unimaginable hazards. Camphorated oil chest applications at complete strength were a home treatment transferred down through generations, applied onto children's chests whenever coughs made breathing difficult. Throughout the 70s, parents maintained bottles of this strong-smelling oil in bathroom cabinets, reaching for it at the initial indication of congestion. The sharp menthol aroma saturated bedrooms and appeared to open airways almost immediately, providing comfort during extended evenings of coughing. Grandmothers advocated it, mothers relied on it, and children matured associating that smell with being attended to during illness. Nobody measured dosages carefully because it appeared as a simple external treatment. Yet camphor is considerably more hazardous than its recognizable presence indicated. Children who ingested even modest amounts confronted seizures, breathing difficulties, and potentially lethal poisoning. Some absorbed hazardous concentrations through skin when parents administered it too liberally. Emergency rooms recorded case following case of camphor toxicity in young children. When regulators scrutinized the evidence, they prohibited the strongest formulations entirely. The reassuring treatment of innumerable childhoods transformed into a warning narrative about trusting custom over security. Mercury-based teething powders were dispersed onto the gums of irritable babies for generations, relied on by parents who possessed no concept they were exposing children to one of the most toxic metals recognized to medicine. Throughout the 70s, these powders still circulated in certain households, transferred down from grandmothers who recalled applying them decades earlier. The fine white powder appeared innocuous, and babies did appear to calm following administration. Parents presumed they were pursuing time-tested wisdom, the variety of practical knowledge households gathered through years of raising children. The powder dissolved on tiny gums and entered developing organisms with every administration. What households didn't comprehend was that mercury gathers rather than passes through. Thousands of babies cultivated a mysterious condition labeled pink disease, characterized by painful hands and feet, irritability, and occasionally death. Doctors puzzled over symptoms for years before researchers connected the cause back to teething powders. The disclosure was devastating for households who had unknowingly poisoned their own children while attempting to comfort them. The powders were prohibited, yet the damage had already distributed through a generation. Which prohibited medication classic sparked the strongest recollection for you? Share your experiences in the comments section. If this expedition through Pharmaceutical Chronicle ignited memories or educated you about something novel, activate that like button and distribute it with somebody who'd value it. And remember to subscribe for additional vanished treatment customs from medical heritage.